Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of the Shameless Freedom Podcast. And today I want to talk about polarity and the energy of dominance and submission. And I think a lot of people get this concept misconstrued that dominant and submissive energy is all about BDSM and the kink world. And I want to bring a different awareness and definition to what those energies and that polarity really is. Because whether you are in a relationship, a romantic relationship dynamic, or you're even in a work relationship, you need to have a balance of energies. So let's talk about this domination energy for a moment. Domination energy is not power over. Now, this is many times the way that we have been taught about someone who is controlling and or in power, and that is an abuse of power. But I am talking about healthy dominance. This means someone who has the strength and the power of creating a container and leading with presence. So they are leading with safety. They are safe in their own body, in their own energy, and are present for you. So they can lead with safety and presence. And what that means is that person is grounded and can offer a structure so that another person can soften. Just think about that for a moment. If you have someone in your presence who is strong, grounded, powerful, present, they are not going to fall over with the storm. They can handle you in anything that comes up in any circumstance. You then, as the person in that dynamic, can feel safe to surrender. But if you do not feel safe, if you do not feel that that other person is present, is safe, and can handle being in that container with you without trying to fix you, save you, judge you. This is where a lot of our issues, concerns come from, is if we have concerns or issues with safety, judgment, self-sabotage, etc. If you are in relationship conversation with someone who is not grounded and is not able to stand in whatever storm that you are moving through, that is where we don't feel safe within ourselves. We don't feel safe with another person. What we need is someone to reflect back that safety. And when I think to a submissive role, submission is not weak. It is not, let me obey you, master. The person who is submissive is actually the one who is in charge. And this is where you get to trust. You get to receive, to surrender, to fully let go of control and be fully met in the present moment. Now, Everything here is about energy and presence. So if your thoughts and your energy are up here racing in your mind, you're not fully present in here. And there is this balance that if we want to have the best thriving relationships that allow us to grow, we need to have polarity. You need to have both ends of the spectrum. If you have two people that are always trying to lead, nobody gets to surrender. Everybody's fighting about leading. This is a lot of times what happens in relationships, especially with women. If we have powerful jobs where we are leading all day long, and then you come home to a relationship and you try to lead. You have a man and a woman that are both trying to lead. It doesn't work. It actually creates tension. Someone has to lead and someone has to surrender. That is the way polarity works. If you have two people managing, nobody gets to receive. Everybody is doing, 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 and there's no receiving. If everyone is carrying, no one gets to rest because everyone is doing. And the truth of the matter is, we need to have this balance in our relationships and also in the workplace. I have seen this over and over again where multiple people want to take the lead. They want to be the one in charge. Well, when you have people fighting over who is going to be in charge, no one is then able to be this collaborative team because you've got two people fighting for power, for that struggle. And why? We don't need to have two people that are always playing that dominant leadership role. And in fact, you can lead with authority and presence that are soft. You don't have to come across as a bulldozer in order to have grounded, present energy. But I think that is what we have seen in society, in the business world, as well as in our relationships. And I have to say that what I have seen more often, that dominant energy is actually softer than we realize. Yes, there is a grounded, strong presence. However, the most powerful containers are those that create that safety to soften, to allow people to open up. This is what creates miracles in the business world and in our relationships. You can't fake surrender and feel safe. And you can't truly lead and be present if you are trying too hard to be the one in control, right? Like you can't truly lead from that power, is what I'm talking about. If you're not present, you can think you are, but the truth of the matter is you're not. You see, we need this balance of leading and being led, holding and being held, creating a container and surrendering. And this is one of the things that I love about dance is that I get to create and be part of an experience where I am not leading. I am not driving on the dance floor. I am there to lean back and surrender and to let my dance partner lead the way. Now, some days are better than others, but the truth is, it's a great practice for you to learn how to surrender. So I'm going to ask you this. What activities in your life do you have on a day-to-day basis as a hobby where you get to surrender, where you are not the one that's in charge? I want you to really think about that for a moment. I think many of us in our workspaces, whether we have a day job, whether we have a business, we work in a corporate environment. There are corporate things that are happening all day long. And do you have the opportunity to surrender? Or are you always leading? Are you always driving, trying to get stuff done, trying to achieve, to move the needle forward? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, do you allow yourself to step back, to pause, to let other people step up, to let other people grow, to let other people fail? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a leadership presence way. This is the same thing we need to do with our children. As our children start to get older, it is not our job to lead their lives. It is their job to lead their lives, not ours. And as a mom, we all want the best for our children. And we want them to learn from our past mistakes and to move forward and to not have to go through some of the same things that we went through. However, sometimes the best path for them is for them to actually experience that emotion, the actual experience. That's what feeling is that experience. I know this is going to be a really funny story, but it's just coming up now, so I have to share it, right? Because as a parent, there are things that we would love for our children to learn. Like, for example, when you finish the milk jug, don't leave the milk jug in the fridge with a swig. If you finish the bag of chips, but you leave crumbs, don't leave the bag in the bottom. Now, we can create rules, guidelines, expectations for our children to follow, and they don't. They still do the same darn thing over and over again. However, I had a situation where I was at my mom's. My son's favorite chips were there. I had some. I left some crumbs at the bottom of the bag. And he comes home with a little smirky face and says, you know, Mom, next time you don't finish a bag of chips and just leave crumbs in the bottom. You throw it away. And of course, I'm smiling and laughing and all at the same time because it was the experience that he had that has now allowed him to feel it differently. I can tell him all I want. Don't do that. I can hold space for that. But until he gets to experience it and be on the other end, does he fully understand it? And this is where polarity is so important. It is not our jobs to always be the dominant one. It is always not always our job to be the submissive one. We need to learn how to create that balance. And when you create that balance, you know what it feels like on the other side. And this happens in all relationships. It's different when you look at it in a workplace setting than in a romantic partnership because there's a different connotation and experience that you have romantically with a partner than you do in the office. And when I think about what we as women need in our lives, we need spaces where we can be met in surrender, where we can let go of control, where we can feel safe enough to trust, to receive, to surrender. But what I hear all the time is that women do not feel safe enough, that they end up finding men, containers that do not feel safe, that do not provide that I'll call sacred presence that allows you to soften. And this is where the internal job comes into play. Because, yes, we want to have that partner that can provide that container, that presence for us as we move through whatever it is, especially when I think about female-male relationships in the bedroom, etc. Women want their men to be dominant, present, fully there to meet us where we're at, to let us drop into our own safety. However, if we don't know how to drop into our own body, our own surrender, it can sometimes be hard to call in a presence that can meet us there. We are going to attract people who can meet us in the energy of where we can meet ourselves. And I would invite you to be curious. Where do you feel safe within your own body? Where do you not feel safe within your own body? And this is where we have this opportunity for growth and expansion because the more you feel safe in your own nervous system, your body, your energetic container, you will be able to call in mirrors for yourself, mirrors that will help you to see where you are at in the journey. What other things can be reflected back to you where you can create more safety and presence in your own nervous system, in your own body? Where can you create more loving presence to this beautiful human vessel that you live in? It is not always about finding someone else who can do that for us. I think a lot of times you may meet someone and you feel something and they allow something to come out in you, which is great. And then they're gone and you're like, oh, where did they go? There are ways that you can create that within you and then continue to attract more people that consistently meet you there as opposed to a random experience that you're chasing after. So I invite you to really sit with and be curious. Where can you be more trusting, more surrendered on a daily basis? Come up with an area. Where can you be more surrendered? If you play multiple different roles of wife, mother, business worker, daughter, friend, finance manager, whatever that is, name 5 roles. And I invite you to seriously consider and write down a few things of the responsibilities that you have in each of those roles. And in each of those roles, are you the one who has all the responsibility? Are you the one who's leading everything? Are you surrendered to anything? Or are you the one who is doing it all? And identify one place that you can step back, that you can surrender and become more present and aware to it. This is not something that you're going to transform all areas of your life overnight. It's an awareness process. And I invite you to take the challenge and see, where are you at in your polarity dynamics? And are your relationships filled with flow? When you have a good dominant submission relationship, there's flow. When you have two people that are too down, you've got this. When you have two people that you're all surrendered, you're all swimming. So where can you find that balance? You have two people that work together, that communicate effectively. Communication's a whole nother podcast episode, because many times we just don't know how to communicate. But first, you have to be aware, to notice and pause with no judgment, but just notice where you are, what energy you're bringing to that role that you are playing. And you always have to play that masculine container, that dominant container. And if you are in that role, are you leading with presence, or are you leading with control? Because that's the other shift. So many people I see are leading with what they believe is power, but it's more forceful power. It is not this soft, gentle, tender power. And that's where you really want to be. If you would like to learn more about diving into these topics, I invite you to reach out and schedule a one-on-one with me and see how we can help you tap into this softness so that you can start to achieve more balance in your life and feel that abundance, that receiving, that trust and surrender. Because you will see, when you start to see that in one area of your life, it opens up doors in many others.